It's been a while. Here we are, the second series of the channel, brought to you by the higher beings of the Cabal, and of course, viewers like you. This time, I bring you to Colombia, a quaint little South American country nestled in the Andes and Amazon basin. It's famously known for the myth of El Dorado, caffeine, and cocaine. That last one comes later. It started its life as a multitude of Spanish colonies before declaring independence during the European shitfest started by some Republicans. No, not those Republicans, these Republicans. And a Corsican general turned emperor/madman. Control over the region switched many sides between Spanish loyalists, a guy who they named a country after, and many military juntas. The guy who I mentioned earlier declared South American independence and formed Gran Colombia. Now suffering the same fate as every South American federation of its time, it collapsed, and the Republic of Colombia was born. Skimming over a few more important moments, it got trolled by the US for a strip of land, later known as the Panama Canal, a war with Peru, and other civil wars and political violence movements. We come to a week in Colombia, rife with leftist guerrilla groups and right-wing paramilitaries. Following all nations that were weakened by corruption or political violence, or a mixture of the two, small-time gangs worked their way into prominence. Many of these gangs focused on producing and selling illegal drugs and exporting them abroad, especially to a very interested 1970s USA. Switching to non-existent Google Street View, before all this, an innovative boy who would amount to kingpin of an emerging market, earning $30 billion by 1993 to his name, was born on December 1st, 1949, by the name of Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. Yes, the guy with the hippos. He was raised in Medellin, the second largest city in Colombia, a place he would call home for most of his life. He was the third of 7 children of a farmer and elementary school teacher. Fun fact, the number of kids needed in a family in a country is a good way to tell their human development index level. It's rumored that he started his devilish tendencies by stealing gravestones, sanding them down and selling them. His brother says otherwise, as these people failed to pay site care for graveyard. This sounds oddly familiar. I just can't put my finger on it. Escobar's son says his father forged diplomas for the Universidad Autónoma Latinoamericana of Medellin, a school he studied at briefly before leaving without a degree. Curious. He ran street scams, sold illegal cigarettes, fake lottery tickets, and stole cars. Later, he started smuggling contraband over Colombia's many borders with other countries. During this, he built his intel network, made connections with the right people, and smuggled without even hiding his contraband. Now, I have to jump further south. I assure you this is the last time. There's a whole ton of background information to this story, though. In Chile, the US propped up a very generous fascist dictator, Augusto Pinochet, who offered free one-way helicopter rides to Chilean communists. I hope you get my euphemism, as the only thing he hated more than communists was drug traffickers. Pinochet shut down 33 labs and arrested 346 drug dealers, and being Pinochet, had them all killed, including Mateo Moreno. But true to his nickname, Cockroach, survived his brief tea time with the firing squad. He did the smart move and fled Chile, back to Colombia. Cockroach brought with him cocaine, an uber-addictive narcotic that hijacks the pleasure centers of the brain. He had a few options of smugglers. He could either go with the rich but soft with the Chola brothers, Jorge and Fabio, Jose Rodriguez Gacha, or the Mexican, but being in the emerald trade, Gacha was willing to kill his partners, so that was a no-go. But lastly, there was Pablo Escobar, someone who could give you your IP address if you decided to stop his trucks. In short, he owned Antioquia. The choice was obvious. This deal hashed out would have Cockroach make the cocaine paste in Peru, process it into powder, and Pablo would handle the business side of things. Again, sounds familiar. As his routes with regular contraband are fine, he smuggled the powder through those. Nothing had changed. Escobar just diversified. Later, the deal changed as his interest in cocaine grew. He bought a lab closer to home, in his old neighborhood in fact, and started producing easily in broad daylight. This lab was still headed under Cockroach, but under more direct management under Escobar. Once Escobar saw the profits from this lab, he went wild. Even his mother was in all this, as she made coats and such to hide cocaine in. These profits were mostly from America, but Escobar couldn't go to America, like he could go in and out of Antioquia. So he brought his partner Lion into the mix, and had him smuggled into the US. Once Lion got coke into America, it was Carlos Laders, half Colombian and half German, who had an affinity with John Lennon and Adolf Hitler, job to get it to the rich and famous of Miami. Once Pablo needed more, he always needed more, as he started increasing production. Leon couldn't smuggle it all into Miami. Lions started coming up with new ways to smuggle, such as bribing pilots and having women, especially pregnant ones, in just a few grams in small packets, inventing the drug mule. Very soon, coke would be baked or packaged with every Colombian export you could think of. It was all in months of cockroaches' supposed meeting with death. This much coke alarmed the DEA, who started busting 60 kilos a day, and hiding all this money from your friends is difficult. So Pablo hashed out deals with Gacha and the Ochoa brothers, and laid the foundations for the Medellin cartel. At this point, Pablo didn't need Cockroach, started fucking him over. So in 1976, Cockroach essentially sold 390 kilos of coke to the Colombian DAS. Like the FBI, but a smidge more corrupt. Pablo went to the local DAS station where his paid officer, Colonel Herrera, arrested him, taking the picture that would eventually lead to Pablo's downfall, a simple mugshot of Pablo laughing. As revenge, Pablo would have Cockroach's dealer in Miami killed, and Pablo most likely executed Cockroach himself. People say if a nuclear holocaust goes down, only the cockroaches will survive. I guess they were wrong. Pablo Escobar was not a man to be pushed, to be cheated, to be wronged. Even if he wronged you and weren't the DAA or Ronald Reagan, you couldn't fight back. If you did, you would find yourself hung by your ankles and shot. Sorry to come such a bitter end to this episode, but that was the truth. Next time, we'll be talking about Pablo Escobar's little political stint, the beginning of his narco-terrorism, and the true formation of the Medellin cartel. Until next time, ciao ciao.